Disclaimer: the following will contain spoilers for 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. If you do not want to be spoiled, well, I suppose click off right now, and I highly suggest going to play the game yourself or watching someone's playthrough of it, because it is a very well crafted game. With that out of the way, let us begin! On today's episode of 13 Sentinels Aegis Room Character Files, we'll be discussing the de facto leader of the Sentinel pilots, namely Renya Gouto. As per usual, we will begin by discussing in chronological order from the timeline of 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. So we will be starting with the 22nd century, year 2188 Renya Gouto. To a surprising extent, according to Chihiro Morimura from 2188, Renya Gouto is actually very self-serving and selfish, also quite driven by his own desires. We do not know for why he did what he did, because as it is stated here on screen, during the acquisition of Newman Arc, he used Morimura's interstellar development project as a front to hide the backdoor transfer of a large slush fund, then suspended the project to cover up the proof. He would, at a later date, hire Eiseki Gahara to erase Chihiro Morimura due to the fact that she had started to gain traction again and funding for the interstellar development project. Because of that, her project was about to receive a thorough review from a Council of Nations, which in turn made Renya Gouto fear that they would find out about his corruption. So he essentially hired an assassin because he was afraid of being, ousted for what he did. In a certain point of view, Kendo Ogata is not wrong to say that Renya Gouto did indeed act as the catalyst for the extinction of humankind in 2188. It is because of Renya Gouto's selfish actions that drove Morimura to become so desperate to continue her project, which in turn led to the creation of the AI of Nenji Ogata's father, Kengo Ogata, who was more than happy to do anything it took to keep the project afloat due to the AI's inherent desire to be reincarnated, to gain a human body and to become a person again. To get a better insight, let us play the log itself for all to see. Enjoy!
This data is that you, Gouto? It's been a while. The last time I saw you was 2 months before my death. Roughly a year ago, I think. Chairman Ogata? An AI construct based on Chairman Kengo Ogata? Why would this be in Morimura's files? I see. So this is how she managed to raise all those funds. She must have used this AI to access the Shikishima Chairman's hidden network. Not quite. I'm afraid that was originally my idea. The good Professor Morimura was only following my orders. So all of this was by design? Your design? Leaking the prototype nanomachinery to the black market? The catastrophic consequences? You're the one who exploited her. If you blame anyone, blame yourself. We were so close to losing Project Arc entirely. Now we must prioritize the project above all else. I'll finally have my second chance at life. You were planning on downloading yourself into a clone. A brave new Earth is waiting for me. I won't let you do this. What is Professor Morimura doing now? She's dead. By that hitman's hands, I presume. That's humanity. Self-destructive to the very end. Only a few survivors left now. I give them 3 days at most. My deepest condolences for your imminent death. Shut up, Construct. Your project is over. Unfortunately for you, the Ark is already set off. It's still within comms range. You don't have clearance. I refuse to let an AI control the future of humanity. Not
Now, to add a bit more of context for the last line spouted by Renya Gouto, he had no senior administrative ID because during the point in time that the project became the most important thing to be fulfilled, Chihiro Morimura had received full control over the project now, so, well, she essentially didn't give Renya Goto an ID, or should I say, a senior administrative ID, because of her inherent distrust of him and her utter dislike of him after what he did to her. On an interesting note, Juro Izumi is the only one who wasn't integral to the project who had received a senior administrative ID as well. Because unlike the rest of the staff, or should I say, the rest of the survivors that had access to a senior administrative ID, only those who were integral to the project like Shinonome, Tamao, or Yuki had legit reasons to own one. Juro was given one simply because Chihiro trusted him the most out of everyone. And I suppose him being her erstwhile lover also was a factor too. I would also like to note that it is also because of Renya Goto that they all died so fast. If he had not told Ace Sekigahara to continue on with the assassination, the power supply for the colony would not have been destroyed in said assassination, which wouldn't have led to the meeting between Hijiyama's camp and Juro's camp, which eventually led to essentially the death of almost everyone except 2 people. So yeah, on a very interesting note, Renya Goto is actually to blame for almost every problem, every major problem that happened to the people in the 22nd century. Or at the very least acted as a huge catalyst that snowballed into all of it. And with that, we will now move on to the third loop Renya Goto. The third loop Renya Goto is intelligent, hails from Sector 2, and is also apparently quite popular with the ladies, if anything is to go by according to Miwako. Renya Goto possessed an immense crush on Chihiro Morimura from the first loop, to such a degree that when Chihiro started acting suspiciously, he started to believe that, well, Juro Izumi from the first loop, prisoner number 426, may have brainwashed her. However, at this point of time, even he didn't know that the Chihiro Morimura that he was in love with was no longer a real person. Because the Chihiro Morimura that he had gotten to know of was an AI construct based on the data saved in Sector 0 by the original Chihiro Morimura from the first loop, who actually died in the second loop. Renya Goto's desperation would then make him enact one of Chihiro's backup plans, which were clones she had made in case of her death, namely, the Chihiro Miura in Sector 5. Chihiro Miura was a perfect clone created to act as a backup body for Chihiro Morimura should ever a need arise. But Goto messed up the memory download process. Instead of downloading Chihiro Morimura from inside the simulation, the memories he downloaded too were from Chihiro Morimura of 2188. Renya spends most of his time trying to decipher and figure out all the logs from 2188, connect the dots of all the information, and come up with a reasonable conclusion to the actual events happening within the game. One could say that the third loop Renya Goto acts as the player's avatar, as his story arc essentially consists of answering many important questions that have been strewn throughout every other character's story paths and arcs. On a side note, the third loop Renya Goto is also immensely hated by the third loop Ace Sekigahara because apparently he dated the third loop Shinonome Ryoko in middle school. One can also argue that the third loop Renya Goto can be considered the salvation of Renya Gouto's character as a whole, due to the fact that the third loop Renya Gouto played an integral part in helping the 15 survivors get out of the simulation, which could act as a form of indirect penance from the original Renya Gouto, who caused all of this in the first place. Renya Gouto, at the conclusion of the game, has, well, amended his bridges with Ryoko Shinonome, and now they are happily working together on a project to recreate DNA sequences so that they may create clone bodies to allow the AI constructs inside the simulation to come out to the real world and be able to become real humans. To that end, he and Ryoko are currently also working alongside the Chihiro Morimura of 2188 as they restored her back to life inside Chihiro Miura's body in the simulation. So, one could say everyone got quite a happy ending considering all the shit they've been through. And thus with that, we conclude another episode of 13 Sentinels Aegis Room Character Files. Woo! We're almost done with all the characters of important note. And next time on 13 Sentinels Character Files, wrong order, 13 Sentinels Aegis Room Character Files, we will be discussing the genius programmer, the unknown son of Chihiro Morimura, to him anyway, because apparently everyone but him knows that fact, Tsukasa Okino. Oh, and also Hijiyama's trap lover. So, with that, let's see, end cut. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Do leave a comment, and please, so to help me improve on my content. And with that as our ending note, I thank you for watching, and I sincerely hope I'll see you again in my other videos. So, with that, I bid you all a fond bye.